store, which opened in Vero Beach in 1942.
Until the first shopping center opened in 1960, most stores in Vero Beach were in one small area that some now call the historic downtown. The late Bill Wodtke Sr. opened Wodtke's department store in 1942. His children worked in the store at various times, and daughter Kay Wodtke Trent was involved in the business full-time for 33 years. Wodtke's was one of the first stores in Vero to have air conditioning.
You had to put that in your advertising. That was a drawing card to get people to come in.
I bet some people came in just to get out of the hot weather.
Yes, and we had a lady who drove her car right through the window, and maybe she was going to get cooled off. One of those things where she put her foot on the wrong pedal, but came right in through the window, over the window, into the store. Nobody was hurt. She was just embarrassed.
The store was on 14th Avenue, which was the main retail street in Vero Beach in those days. One of the big sellers in those early years were hats and gloves and girdles.
That's true. At that time, women, when they dressed up, you weren't completely dressed up if you didn't have hats and gloves. And you always also had a girdle and stockings on. It didn't matter how hot it was. That was the thing to do, and so we all did it. When we went to church, we had hat and gloves because most of the churches wanted their women to have their heads covered. We sold men's felt hats, dress hats, and of course when they went to church, they had to take them off. Keeping men's hat size was a problem. Ladies, there were no sizes, so you just found one that fit.
What about men's hats? How were they sized back then?
They weren't head-sized. You would take a tape measure and just put around their head, and that's the way they were sized. The finer felt hats came with a mold inside that kept it in shape. It was a shaper so that they knew that they had a good hat that was nice. Many of the men wore felt hats.
Even in Vero and in the summertime and before widespread air conditioning in Florida, people dressed up more then than they do now.
Oh, absolutely. Women that went out to lunch, and men, if they had an office job, they wore a hat when they went to work and it went on a shelf or something. This was just part of the dress code for adults at that time.
You sold a lot of little white gloves?
Yes, and I remember now having them for children. Back in those days, Easter meant a new outfit for everybody, from hats and gloves for children, new shoes, new everything, and it didn't get worn until they walked in church on Easter Sunday morning.
Are you talking of dressing up your mother's generation, your generation as well? When did it really end?
Well, I was married in 1960, and I can remember having hat boxes with big brimmed hats. Mainly they were for church, because our church still required your head covered, and it was so much prettier to have a hat than just a veil or a scarf, on your head. I think they went quite heavily through the 50s and then in the early 60s for those on special church days. The gloves went right along with it.
Bathing caps for women? Did you sell them?
Yes, we did. We sold bathing suits, and we also had the bathing caps, mainly a seasonal thing. I think a lot of the private pools just about insisted that you have them.
I think it might have been state law at one time. I can't imagine wearing a bathing cap these days, though.
No, I couldn't either. And there weren't head sizes. If you had a small head or a big head, you could be uncomfortable.
Kay Wodtke Trent was the second woman elected president of the local Chamber of Commerce. In 1960, the Wodtkes opened a new store in Miracle Mile Shopping Center. They closed the downtown store in 1980, but operated the second store for nearly 40 years.
Janie Gould from WQCS prepared that report.